All right, joining us now, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is with us. You know, the two things that I see the world has fallen short on as it relates to Putin's invasion of Ukraine is, one, I think we fell short on getting the weaponry they need to fight and defend their country fast enough. And still we have Western European and NATO allies relying on Russian energy. And why aren't we solving that?
You know, Sean, I think those are both spot on. We collectively, not just the United States, but the West, the Europeans whose backyard this is in, were slow with weapon systems. They were late in delivering actually committed weapon systems, and then the weapon systems they committed to were too small and didn't quite meet the needs of what the Ukrainians actually needed to be successful, to win, to drive the Russians back a second today. Even as we sit here, the Europeans are underwriting this horror that we're seeing in Ukraine. Right? They're buying energy from them. This is underwriting Vladimir Putin. It is his lifeline. Is it his financial lifeline? And we all know this war gets fought out as much economically as it does on the ground. And, you know, when I watch President Biden say, well, we've sanctioned everything we can, they left banks unsanctioned. They left major financial institutions unsanctioned. It wasn't a serious effort to actually drive down the ruble, drive up the cost for the Russians, and make Vladimir Putin make the difficult decision about whether he wanted to fight on in the face of a global economic onslaught on him and his leadership team.
When I look at the Ukrainians, I think they've shown incredible courage, valor, when given the weaponry to fight back an army that is far outgunning them and outmanning them, and do it with great effectiveness. It's an insurgency battle that's proven it can work. But if you look at the entire country, I mean, we have now a city like Mariupol that is in rubble. You see, we had, I guess Senator Daines was there last week, and he saw the mass graves in Bucha. And it's devastating. We hear other reports of 900 up to nearly 1,000 people in a mass grave, and that's including innocent men, women, and children. What should the American doctrine be here? I saw that Senator Chris Coons had mentioned from Maryland that he thought it might be a good idea to put American boots on the ground. I am dead set against that.
Oh, Sean, you know, Zelensky has it. President Zelensky and the Ukrainians haven't asked for the 82nd Airborne or the 101st Air Assault, right? What they've asked for is the tools that they need to continue to put the whoop on the Russians, as they have. It's been remarkable to watch. Imagine if, when the Biden administration had known last fall, when they knew Vladimir Putin was about to undertake precisely the type of activity he's undertaken, this aggression, imagine if they had begun to provide with anti-missile systems and air defense systems, intelligence systems, all the things that would have been a cohesive force multiplier for the Ukrainian defense services. I'm confident they would have even been more successful. But even today, you watch the Biden administration hesitate, be slow, hold more meetings. The time is now. The Vladimir Putin's not going away. He's going to continue this assault. We've seen it with just the last 24 hours of activity inside of Ukraine. We should continue to provide the Ukrainians the tools they need. We don't need to send our kids there. The Europeans should do their part. And when we do, the idea that says that the United States will do the things it needs to do to help sovereign nations defend themselves when they're prepared to do so, whether that's the Taiwanese or someplace else, those will be things that world leaders across the globe will understand. They'll see that we're good for our word. And when we do, the risk that we'll have the horrors that we're seeing in Ukraine take place will be reduced elsewhere in the world as well.
You know Vladimir Putin. You've negotiated again with Vladimir Putin. Do you agree with President Zelensky that the world needs to worry about Russia using nuclear weapons?
Of course. Vladimir Putin, if threatened, if he feels like his regime is at risk, whether that's from inside or outside, will use the tools of weapons of mass destruction he feels like he needs to do to protect himself. I don't think the probability of this is particularly high at this point, but if we're counting on Vladimir Putin to exercise restraint, I think we have seen evidence that this is a ruthless, nasty thug who is smart enough to know that he has watched his military fail. And if he feels like his regime is about to fall, I am very confident that he will use the tools he feels like he needs to use to defend his continued stay in power, whether that be chemical weapon systems or even greater terror on civilian populations, or I pray it doesn't come to be nuclear weapons.
All right, we continue with former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. So do you agree with my assessment that the U.S., NATO allies, Western European countries have been slow in getting the necessary military aid to Ukraine? And I think you nailed it. I mean, it's the intelligence they need. missile defense systems, air defense systems, javelins, stingers, tanks, and I'm not sure why Joe Biden, vetoed the MiGs that Poland was offering Zelensky. I'm not sure exactly why they canceled a delivery of attack helicopters last week as well. That makes no sense to me, because I believe if the world is able to stop Vladimir Putin and his territorial ambitions in Ukraine, the world is going to be better off in the end. And I don't think most people have the sense of urgency that's needed for a conflict like this with an insurgency resolved army of Zelensky to win. I mean, they need the equipment, and if they don't get it, they can't win.
Sean, we've seen this now for months, not just weeks. I know folks talk about this being 6, 8, 10 weeks on. Truth is, we could have been providing these tools to them for many, many months. Frankly, I've watched the Biden administration behave in a way that was reactive, right? They allowed Vladimir Putin to have the strategic hand and guide the direction of this. When he decided he wanted to attack in the north, we simply responded there. We should have done an awful lot more to provide the Ukrainians with the tools that they needed early on. There's still time, but I still watch the delay. I can't figure out why those helicopters haven't moved either. The Biden team talks about the risk of provoking Vladimir Putin. I think we've demonstrated that those kinds of weapon systems, those operational tactical weapon systems, aren't going to cause Vladimir Putin to behave in a way that is escalatory. He's made his decision about how he wants to fight this war. We should provide the Ukrainians with tools they need to push back against it. They've shown not only resolve and bravery, but really good tactical capabilities as well to do just that. They need these weapons. They need additional ammunition. And we talk about the nature, but there's something that is really important about the volume of the weapon systems we provide to them. We should do it. We can afford to do it. They're willing to pay for these things. We ought to get them to them just as quickly as we can. The time is upon us, Sean.
You recently found it important enough to go over to Taiwan, and I think we all know that President Xi of China is watching the events unfolding here very closely. He certainly has been aggressive in his territorial ambitions, and he's not been quiet about, quote, reunification, his words, not mine, with Taiwan. We both know that would be a takeover of Taiwan. Very aggressive invasion of Taiwan's airspace with Chinese fighter jets. That is ongoing. It would appear that plan, that seems like the next card that's going to fall here. And I'm not sure that Taiwan will be able to put up much of a fight. And I'm not sure America has the stomach under this president to do what would be necessary to provide the people of Taiwan with the weaponry that they can fight off the Chinese.
Sean, when you lose the idea that America will simply do the things that it said it would do to protect its own interests, right? We have deep American interests that are connected to Taiwan. Not just everyone talks about semiconductors. That's a big deal, but there are enormous American interests in our economy and things that matter to every American that take place in Taiwan each and every day. But this is the window, Sean. This before the first missile, before the first ship is launched across the strait to attack Taiwan. This is the window to provide those tools, those armaments, the training that the Taiwanese need. And we shouldn't limit it to that. We should make sure that the Japanese are doing their part, that the South Koreans and Australians are doing their part, that every country in the region who is threatened by the Chinese Communist Party, be it Taiwan or someplace else, gets access to the best weapon systems that would prevent them or permit them to be able to defend their own sovereignty, and importantly, send the right message to Xi Jinping, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, that says, no, we're going to deter you. We're going to stop you. The cost of you taking that kind of action is going to be really, really high. Don't even try it. This is what we worked on diligently, day in and day out in the Trump administration, to establish a model.
It's interesting. None of this happened under Donald Trump, and there wasn't a threat of it. This revitalized or new version of this Iranian deal, I hear, would free up, tens of billions of dollars for the Iranian mullahs that chant death to America. We have Russia, quote, brokering or helping negotiate this deal, which is a form of insanity to me. Also, the possibility that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard would be taken off American no-fly list. That's insane. This is the number one state sponsor of terror, and these are the people that are their elite fighting force. Then the possibility that Putin would build a nuclear facility there, and that we would import oil from Iran. You've been reading the reports as I have. Is this really under consideration? Because that's madness to me.
It appears that it is. It is absolutely nutty. There is no logic to arming the Ayatollah, who has killed hundreds of Americans, who threatens Israel with its destruction. It's the wiping it off the face of the earth. The little Satan, we're the big Satan, to provide them with billions of dollars in money, some of which, Sean, will go to, you talked about their deals with Russia, some of which will end up in Vladimir Putin's hands, where he'll go kill Ukrainians. I mean, this is nonsense. And
he's already getting
add only to that, don't forget these missiles we've seen fired from North Korea over the last few weeks. These are range and different in kind. This is the risk of cascading crises is very real.
Well, unless we get the adults back in charge, I'm not feeling very confident about the prospects of things working out well. I said that to you at the beginning of this year, long before this invasion of Ukraine, and I think we've both been on the same page here. Always a pleasure to have you, former Secretary of State
Thank you, Sean.
Mike Pompeo. Thank you, sir, for being with us.